The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack is facing a time crunch to wrap up dozens of witness interviews in the next few weeks. Congressman Jamie Raskin says the committee is playing beat the clock against former President Trump's inner circle. ABC News investigative reporter Catherine Falders joins me live now for more on that. Catherine, so who is it that the committee is trying to get these interviews with, and why are they in such a rush to wrap this up?
Yeah, the committee is supposed to hear from former President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, today behind closed doors. That will be a virtual appearance. They're also expected to hear from the former defense secretary, Mark Esper. But look, they're trying to get a number of other top officials to talk to them, right? They're in discussions with Mike Pence's, the former vice president's attorneys, for example. They're also in discussions with Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's former attorney here. So they're trying to get a bunch of these other folks who were close to Trump the day of January 6th. But look, those negotiations aren't moving particularly quickly. And look, to your point about they're up against the clock here, the reason for that is that the midterm elections are in November, right? There's this race to November when Republicans could potentially take over the House, and then this investigation will essentially be non-existent. So we're expecting them to hear from dozens of more witnesses behind closed doors. Then they're going to move into this phase of public hearings. We expect that to be in May, and then they have to write a big report, right? And that's expected to come in the fall. So a lot of these subpoenas are in drawn-out court battles. There's just not enough time for that to be resolved.
And the committee's also working, they say, to fill gaps in White House telephone logs. Why has that been so difficult?
Yeah, so we saw the logs this week from the White House switchboard. There's a gap in those calls, more than 7 hours on the day of January 6th. So it's been so difficult because Trump was always using his personal phones. He wasn't in the Oval Office, as we reported on that day, for most of the day. So it is essentially plausible that you would see that more than 7-hour gap in the White House switchboard, those official government phones call logs. But look, those records from the personal phones are much harder to get. Those wouldn't show up necessarily in the logs. And then there's a whole other layer to this, right, where Trump was communicating on the phones of aides. So those essentially would be non-existent as well. You would have to go to the phone companies and obtain those through subpoenas. They wouldn't be accessible through the government. So again, a much longer process here. Now, the chairman of the committee, Benny Thompson, says there's discussion about issuing a subpoena to Trump's personal phone. Again, I'm told by sources behind the scenes that there's also some debate about that because they're also thinking about this clock, this deadline, essentially in November.
Now, the House is planning to vote next week to hold former Trump aides Dan Scavino and Peter Navarro in contempt of Congress for ignoring congressional subpoenas for records and testimony. But some House members have been critical of the Justice Department for failing to prosecute the contempt charges against former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. So what's the latest on all these charges?
Yeah, it's been more than 3 months since that contempt charge of Mark Meadows was referred to DOJ. And we saw members of the committee express visible frustration with the Department of Justice that they haven't acted on the Meadows charge. Look, what we're hearing behind the scenes from sources is that the Meadows charges are a bit different because he was a White House staffer, for example. There might be arguments made about executive privilege. That could go with Dan Scavino and Peter Navarro as well. So again, a lot of pressure for DOJ to act on these.
All right, Catherine Falders, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.